today on Metaphysical Mississippi. Krista and myself, Emily, have Natalie West on the show to talk about an upcoming event at Holistic Health and Healing. It's the Metaphysical Mississippi Book Club. So stick around and enjoy the show. Welcome, Natalie.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you. I know we've got an exciting event, and I'm going to let you share what all you do and all that. But I know that there's a book club coming up. And
yeah, I'm so excited. I am a practitioner at Holistic Health and Healing. I am a death doula, and I help educate people about the end of life. That's the easiest nutshell way to say that, but it's pretty complex, but I love that work. And that's what I do here. Another thing that I do here is I'm in the middle of writing a book. It's the second edition of this one. This is the only copy I have, so it has like Post-it notes sticking out of it. But it's called 100 Things to Do in Jackson, Mississippi Before You Die. And that one came out in 2016. The second edition's coming out in spring of next year. So I'm literally in the middle of writing that. And now I'm doing a book club. So I'm super excited about that.
Yay. And you've been a guest on our podcast a couple of times as a panelist on different discussions, but if you want to share a little bit more about yourself as the conversation goes along today, so we can get to know you a little bit better personally.
Sure,
that would be
I love that.
Be great. Yeah. So you're not a first timer, but this is your first time to be our spotlight guest. So
yeah, I've always been part of a group, and they've done a great job of like carrying it along. Now you're
in the hot seat.
Be nice.
I'm just going to talk about the book about the Jackson book. I wasn't in the area when it came out, but I'm really interested in what the perspective of what there is to do now since what we just all went through the past couple of years.
Well,
so that's going to be.
I was approached about updating the book right before the pandemic, and then of course that happened, and then that was shelved. And then during the pandemic, there was so much in the original book that was already out of date, just things that had closed, things that had moved, things that had changed the nature of their business so much that it wasn't even the same anymore. And after the shutdown, like everything changed. So I would say it's more than half of what was in the original book is not in there now. And I knew that, but then when I went through the entire book, I was like, oh my gosh. So it was a little sad, but it's also a little nostalgic. I'm kind of glad to have some of those places sort of, preserved in that first book. But a lot has changed, but there's still so many amazing things to do, and people seem surprised by that. But there's so much to do in Jackson. Now you might have to look. I wish there were a central clearinghouse for like, here's everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's tons to do. So it's actually been hard to narrow it down to 100 things. And I think I figured out, I was talking to my husband this morning. I think I have figured out how I can actually fit more than 100 things in this book, but make it look like it's 100 things. So, I found a loophole.
Well, I mean, when we went through the pandemic, everybody kind of just nestled in and getting out in the community and actually doing things. I think we're all creeping back out of our little caves that we, are safe havens. And I think it is a wonderful idea to start the book club because it gets people, out to be in a community and talk about something. So I just think that kind of goes along with, we're coming out. We're going to, start
We talked about doing it online. We talked about our having an online component, and I've thought about that, but I really feel strongly that this is like, we need to connect with one another in community, in person, and just really have that energy in the room when we're talking about these things. And so yeah, that sort of was a catalyst for like, let's make this an in-person event. So, and that in-person event, by the way, is happening
Yes.
on June the 11th, which is on a Sunday from 2 to 4. It's going to be at Holistic Health and Healing. It's limited to 20 people because we had a lot of interest, and so that like freaked me out just a little bit. And so and we don't have a very big classroom, so if anyone is interested, you go to the Metaphysical Mississippi website, and there's a place to register. There's just a little $7 fee, and the book that we've chosen this go around is The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And I have, well, my copy is the 5th agreement, but it's the same. It's essentially the same. Yeah, I think Kristen's got
the original,
the 4 agreements. I've got the 5th agreement, but the 4 are in here. And you know, those 4 agreements, this is a nonfiction book. It's a practical guide to self-mastery. And those 4 agreements are to be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. That's hard. Don't make assumptions. I struggle with that.
Yeah.
And always do your best. And so as you're going, and there's so many people who've read this book already who are coming to the book club because they just want to either reread it or they want to talk about it and just sort of benefit from that discussion. And which is another reason why I felt so strongly about doing this in person. So yeah.
I mean, worldwide, that book has changed so many lives. Just
it really has, and it's a small book. Like there's not a lot, but it's, and I won't even say that it's dense because that makes it sound like it's a hard read. It's not a hard read.
Oh, it's a very easy,
but
simple to read it.
It will, the self-examination that's required while you're reading this book is a little hard to swallow.
Right. You can read the words of the book in one afternoon easy, but to absorb the book and assimilate it can take, still. I haven't finished the book from cover to cover yet because I end up putting it down because like, oh, I got to sit with that for a little while.
And look, we may end up revisiting this at some point. We may do a 1 month long workshop, like once a week, and take one of the agreements and talk about it, you know, once a week.
I was going to say we could talk for 2 hours on one each agreement
easily. And so I'm really excited. Now we are going to have it's going to be a little structured, a little unstructured. Some people aren't real sure if they haven't joined a book club before, like what happens at a book club.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, like there's wine. There will be wine at our book club because my full-time job is my full-time job. I'm a wholesale wine buyer, so I got the hookup. And but I'm taking a lot of cues from this book, which is the companion book for the 4 agreements. And so we'll have some discussion questions. We'll do some small group work. There will be just like a circle and we'll just be talking and just sort of and just engaging with that content and talking about how it's affected us personally, sharing and all of those things. And of course, anything that happens in book club stays in book club. So so I just really want to encourage people to come out.
Now, I've never read the book, and sometimes I like to learn as I go. I like to come to an interview cold, basically, so I can ask the questions that somebody who has not done research can ask. So is the book, okay, this is a Metaphysical Mississippi Book Club. So does it pull from, what modalities does it pull from? Is it metaphysical? Is it witchy? Is it?
It is, I would say that it's very spiritual.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that there's any modalities specifically. It's not witchy. It is,
It's based on the Toltec teachings.
yeah, I was going to say, it is based on the Toltec.
Yeah,
So, I mean, there's a really good little intro right here. If you, I just want to read a little bit of it just to sort of give an idea. This is thousands of years ago. The Toltec were known throughout southern Mexico as women and men of knowledge. Anthropologists have spoken of the Toltec as a nation or a race, but in fact, the Toltec were scientists and artists who formed a society to explore and conserve the spiritual knowledge and practice of the ancient ones. So it's esoteric. I wouldn't say it's new agey because this is ancient knowledge, but it at one point that knowledge sort of went underground, sort of to be protected, and is now being shared again through this book. So definitely, I would say metaphysical in nature, but more spiritual than new agey.
Thank you.
Yes.
So,
and wide application. I feel like anyone of any faith can read this book and benefit from it and not feel like they're reading something that goes against something else they already believe.
That's exactly.
It is a very broadly applicable. No one's trying to convince you to believe something.
Gotcha.
You know, it's really truly a practical guide to self-mastery. That's what it says on the book. So it's not really about religious expression so much as it is internal reflection.
I like that.
So
I can't think of exactly how he says it, but it's basically the art of living, or to view your life as art, that you are art. Incarnate, you are. I don't know that's how he said it, but that our life is our masterpiece, is our art, it is what we're creating. And he references Bible verses in here, so I mean it's definitely not. This is not a book about the Toltec religion. This is a book about
being a better person.
Yes.
But being a better person for yourself, not necessarily for society. That's secondary. Society benefits when we're doing our best. But I mean, it's also not really setting the bar like impossibly high. It's not, I mean, be impeccable with your word. I mean, who wouldn't want to aspire to that? Don't take anything personally. How many of us struggle with that? Don't make assumptions. I mean, I do that a lot, and I've done so much better since reading this book. But I feel like that goes hand in hand with not taking things personally. It's real easy to assume things, and then always do your best, and then differentiating your best from perfectionism. I mean, this is just a really uplifting book. It's here to help us identify what we need to be working on, and then work on it in a way that is attainable and inspiring, and to be able to come together as a group and discuss those sorts of things in a safe place where people can be vulnerable and talk about their experiences, to me is just invaluable. So I'm really looking forward to it.
I was listening to an interview he was doing on YouTube, the author, and he was talking about making assumptions, and he said that, and this was so me, we assume that people judge us the way we judge them. And that's what gets us in trouble sometimes, is we think people think like we do, and most of the time they're not.
We also assume we know what's going on, and we don't. We rarely. I would say we never. I would go so far as to say we never have the full picture. We never really know what's going on. We know what's going on with us. Sometimes we don't have that full picture. So it's real hard. It's sort of unfair to look at someone else and be like, I know exactly what's going on here, and that's what all of this means. And now here's my reaction. And so I really just hope this helps us to slow down and to not just be kinder to ourselves, but to be kinder to other people in our lives, our family, our coworkers, but most especially ourselves, because I find that when I'm making assumptions or when I'm taking things personally, I am often not in a good place in my head. And so that's my reaction. That's my filter when I am interacting with other people and things happen that just, I don't know, throw a monkey wrench in your day, or maybe something big is going on. And it's real hard to work through a big problem when you are bogged down in assuming you know what someone else is going through, not being completely true to your word, not really doing your best, just kind of phoning it in. Somebody else is going to take care of it, and then they don't, and then there's other issues. This helps you live an easier life, not just a better life, an easier life.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that doesn't mean it's easy to get there, but I just feel like this book is transformational. So it's a great first choice. I was super excited.
Yes.
Who was it who came up with that idea? I believe it was Krista. Krista was, because I was like, I've got 4 books in mind for the first one. I don't really know. She's like, what about the 4 agreements? And I was like,
well, 2 reasons
perfect.
I suggested that book. Well, 3. It's a good book for like it's. But number 1, I knew it was short, and number 2, I need to finish reading it, and I needed that like.
And it's available on Audible. So there's a lot of people who who have trouble just sitting down and reading a book. That's just not an enjoyable experience for everyone. And so this is available on Audible. And and so I'm going to do my best to choose books every month, because this is a monthly event.
And this book is it's mainstream. I mean, it's
so mainstream.
It may even be at Walmart. I don't know, but I know it was at 5 and Below, Books A Million. It maybe at Target. I don't know.
Top Shelf or whatever that other little store is called.
And I can order it over our website too.
And on Amazon, it's got over 100,000 reviews.
Yeah.
So this is. I've already spoken to so many people who are coming to the book club who already have this book. So this may be something that people have been meaning to get to. It may be something they've already read. But come, let's discuss it. I just feel like the discussion is going to be just as rich and meaningful as the book itself. So.
Yes, I'm excited.
But definitely register as soon as possible, because we've
the
day that we announced it at a meeting, we had 2 people sign up immediately. So like and that was 2 weeks ago or 10 days ago.
Actually, I think there was like
was it 3?
couple more even before a couple more did it even that same night, because I was like, oh, look at these people. Where did they come from? We just put it on the website.
So I'm stoked, man. I'm so excited. I'm really excited.
Yes.
I just heard. Well, I haven't, but anyway. No, the thought, I don't live in town, so I mean, I live 3 hours from where it's going to be held. But I do think it would be awesome if it was available on Zoom or, a virtual, but I really think that being in the same room together is going to really
I'm not opposed to the idea of somehow opening up an online component, either in addition to or even doing a separate book club that is like, here's the in-person meeting, and that one for me like takes precedent. I don't want people to not come to the in-person one, but and then to have the online one, but I think we would still need to limit how many people, because it's just so hard to have a good discussion online with 50 people. So,
Exactly.
so I'm open to that. I don't think we'll get to that I don't know. We might, I don't know. Krista
We're
was
gonna
just
get
on
through the
later.
first one and see how it goes.
Yeah, I
And
kind of don't want to try to do too much
Oh,
review,
no.
but I mean, we can still revisit this online at some point. So,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
So again,
So-
that's going to be at Holistic Health and Healing, and that is 132 Riverview Drive, Suite D in Flowood, Mississippi,
Yes.
from 2 to
Yes.
4 on Sunday, June 11th.
Yes.
Yes.
Go to our website and we'll have all this
Register.
information. Yeah, all this information
Yes.
will be on our website,
Yes.
as well
Mhm.
as all the.
And there's flyers available in the lobby of Holistic Health and Healing. This is what it looks like. So you can just grab that if you need it. It also went out in the last newsletter, I believe.
Yeah.
But,
You want to share a little bit about what brought you to Metaphysical Mississippi?
Your
wow.
origin story.
my villain origin story. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. I don't talk a lot about this publicly, and I don't talk a lot about this. I never talk about it online. So this might be the first time some people hear this, and I love you, Mom. So, all right. I was raised Southern Baptist, and in a very devoutly religious household, and it was strict, but like not. There are people who have had far more restrictive households than mine, but mine was pretty strict. We were in church all the time, and that was our community. And everything that we did, sort of revolved around that. And then later on in life, some things happened in my life, and my community in the church was not there for me. And it was an incredibly hurtful experience, and not at all what I was expecting from a church family. Although, I mean, in a way, there were parts of me that were not surprised. Let's just be honest. So I left the church, and eventually just sort of became a fairly ambivalent atheist. I didn't really. The things I missed about church were I liked the choir, and I liked the food, because Southern Baptist women can cook some food. And but like I didn't miss the super controlling, unrealistic expectation, the disempowerment of women, there's just a lot of things that didn't sit well with me. And so like I just walked away, and I walked away from everything. And because I was raised in such a legalistic household, it was either you're going to heaven because you're going to be a good Christian, or you're going to go to hell. Like that was it. These are your choices. And so at one point I was like, what if hell is real? And I was like, hell's gonna be lit because all my friends will be there, so let's go. So because I just couldn't go back. I mean, I'm making light of it, but I really couldn't go back. I just could not go back to church. And so for decades, literally for decades, I was a very ambivalent atheist, and comfortable not seeking anything out. My parents were worried to death about me, but I was, content, and in awe of the universe, in awe of this planet, in awe of our existence. Because when you don't have a spiritual background of like, oh, this was created intentionally, it's, I would say, just as awe-inspiring to think, holy smokes, this was all an accident, and look at us here. So there's still a lot of awe, there's still a lot of appreciation, there's still a lot of reverence. It's just not coming from that deeply rooted religious obligation to feel that level of reverence for something that was a creator. So fast forward 30 years, a dear friend of mine who I'd known since high school and had been close to in my adult life, dear friend, who I just absolutely adored, passed away very suddenly at the age of 47, had a massive heart attack. And I don't know how else to say it except to say that he just energetically showed up in my apartment. And I was not prepared for that kind of grief or that sort of confrontation with just how wrong I had been for quite some time. And I thought I was losing my mind, literally thought, wow, grief is really whack. Look at what I think is happening, you know? And so I sat with it for a while, and just through that experience, realizing how real that was, coming to grips with that it was a real thing that happened. And then just sort of processing, like, what else do I not know? Like, I missed this. This was not even on my radar. So that experience, like, he changed my life when I was alive, when he was alive. Okay. And it just is just so fitting to me that through an untimely death that I wish had never happened, the result of that is that he changed it again, you know? And so I came to realize how ill-prepared we are for grief, how difficult it is to talk about death, how badly how bad we are when we know it's coming, at dealing with it, the denial that we feel, the lack of education, the just practically not being prepared. I mean, spiritually unprepared and also practically not prepared. And so I didn't even know what a death doula was, but through researching, like, how do I handle this grief that I was never taught how to deal with, I then learned that being a death doula was a thing. So I sat on that for about 1.5 years. I was like, I just want to make sure this isn't just me being grief stricken, saying, let me go do this thing. Yes. Let me process this. Let me be okay. And then let's see if I still want to do it. And absolutely. So, I mean, I'm here, I'm doing it. And, but that experience also made me seek out answers. So, like, if this is real and that something happens after we die, is God real? Am I required to believe in that now? Because I didn't believe in it for so long. Where do I, like, what does this even mean? What is my spiritual identity if I'm not, am I still an atheist, but I just don't, there's something else happens, and maybe it's science and we just don't understand it yet? So many questions, so many questions. So then I just happened to find Soul Synergy, and they were having all of these classes on spiritual, you know, education, like mediumship, you know, using your intuition, psychic and intuitive development. I took all of those classes, and it was so sweet because there were some wonderful people in there who were just like, I just want to help other people. And I'm like, that's beautiful. I'm just here because I'm trying to figure out what the hell just happened to me. So help me. You know? I'm not here to help anybody else. That's good for y'all. I'm so happy. But no, I was just on a mission to learn and to figure out what the heck. And so it took me a while to really, I'm still pretty skeptical about a lot of things. There are some really out there beliefs that I'm just like, I don't know if I can sign on to that, but good for you, you know. Mm-hmm. But I've just kind of learned to meet people where they are and realize that I don't have to tell them that I don't agree, that they can just believe what they believe and I can believe what I believe. And we are all having this physical experience, you know, we are spiritual beings in a physical body. Is that what, you know, the saying?
Yeah.
And I truly believe that. I mean, I believe we come back. If you'd have told me 10 years ago that I would have signed on with the possibility of reincarnation, I would have thought you were crazy. To me, it seems crazy not to believe it. So there's just so much. There's so much. And so through all of that, it brought me to this metaphysical community. It also brought me to this work as a death doula. And I'm constantly learning. I've got another certification coming up in June. And so, yeah, that's that's the most I think I've ever talked about that. So
Well, of course,
Yay.
now I'm going to ask you a question, and
sure,
you
go
don't
for
have
it.
to share.
Okay.
But when he presented himself, did you say energetically? Is that the wording you?
Yes. Yeah, I didn't see him.
What does that mean? I mean, what does that?
Oh gosh.
Is it
Okay. So
feeling, or yeah, smell, or just
Were there any physical
I
him?
felt
five senses?
his presence in my apartment, but not like a ghost. It was more like just he was everywhere and in my head. And there were, it sounds crazy, y'all, and I'm still not quite used to sounding like a crazy person. So every now and then my skeptical brain kicks in. It's just like, this is nuts, Natalie. But no, really, I mean, I could feel him everywhere. And it was not unnerving. But it was.
Was it almost invasive?
No, not invasive. It was like he was there and had been there.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I got the news, it was like I recognized that he was there. It's like he just showed up as soon as I got the news. It was more like,
Oh, this happened around his time of departure.
oh yes, the same. It was
Okay,
like
I'm sorry. You
I
might have
had a
mentioned that.
3-hour long conversation with him right before he passed, like literally the day before.
A
And
real
it was
conversation, like
the
a
most amazing conversation that you can have with someone without knowing that. It's like, it's the best last conversation you could have with someone without knowing that's the last conversation you're ever going to have with them.
Yeah.
So like we just talked about our friendship, we talked about our love for one another, we talked about all the ways that we had impacted one another's lives, and like I just wouldn't even be who I am had I not met you, because whenever we met, it was during a really difficult time in both our lives, and like 30 years before that. And to still be in touch and to still have so much reverence for one another. We did not agree politically. We did not agree on a lot of things, and we would argue. Like we didn't have like this little rosy little friendship. Like we'd get mad at each other, but it was just such a good friendship. And to lose
because you
that,
could disagree.
oh sure, yeah.
Yeah,
You
that was
can't
the
look.
beauty of it. Yeah.
If you've got a friendship that you think can withstand the test of time, and one argument like sets that spiraling, this is not the friendship you thought you had. So so to have that sort of conversation, and then the very next day for him to pass, and he had passed about, I guess it was early in the morning, like 6:30ish, and I found out at like 8:30. So he had been gone for 2 hours ish. And so yeah, I mean, it was just the presence of something of him.
Yeah.
It wasn't like
but
it
did you
wasn't
not
like a physical knowing. It was like something that occurs to you that you know is true.
Mm-hmm.
But in my head, I was like, what is happening right now? It was,
So it's almost
it
like
wasn't that it was not an unwelcome experience. It was so unfamiliar. Something I was so unprepared for. And as an atheist, I'm not looking for this. I'm not like,
Okay.
oh, I'm grieving, let me pretend he's here, not even on my radar. So just that feeling of just being awash in someone's energy, and they're just everywhere. And then to have this knowing in your mind of having like, and this is the thing that I always hesitate to say because it really does sound like I'm crazy, but oh, maybe I am. But of hearing him, but not like a voice, but just thoughts that were not mine. To be able to have a conversation with someone on a totally different level in a way that is not spoken, and for it to come so easily and so naturally, when 15 minutes before that experience, I was a very comfortable atheist, very, very not seeking it out, not looking for that. But to realize like, I would say it probably took me about 10 days to go, oh, this is beautiful. It not immediate. I was not immediate like, oh, this is amazing. I was distraught. I was shattered. I was not okay.
So you had the experience at the time of his passing before you knew he had passed?
No, I did not. No, I was kind of having an off day because normally, I mean, in the mornings, he would sometimes like shoot me a text message. It would just be a picture of his watch when he'd gone to the gym because he was working on his health.
Okay.
So, and I would hear that notification go off, and in my daily routine, that would mean, okay, I need to get up because I'm fixing to go to work. And I didn't get that. And so I was worried about him. And I felt like something was wrong. But that's because I didn't get that physical cue of ding, I've been at the gym. Yeah. Here's my workout. You know, it was like an accountability partner sort of a thing. Yeah. And so I was actually getting dressed to go to a memorial service for officers at the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries and Parks, because I had been working there, and we had talked the night before, and I told him, I was like, that's what I was doing the next day. He goes, oh, are there gonna be bagpipes? I said, yeah, they always play Amazing Grace on the bagpipes. And there's usually and there's always a salute, you know, with the guns and all of that. And he talked about what he would want at his funeral.
Oh my goodness.
And there were all of these really unusual signs. We'd never talked about that before. And I remember I took a screenshot of that and I sent it to one of his friends in Thibodeau. And I was like, I don't know if you can make this happen, but here's what he said. I did not go to his funeral. It was in Texas. But I didn't feel like I needed to because he was right there. Mm-hmm. And that lasted for I would say a good solid 3-4 weeks. And I still feel him every now and then. He's been gone for 5 years. And I think about him and his wife and his kids and how they are doing now. I'm not in touch with any of them, but you know, it's just to me, being able to say, oh, there's something else out there. And it's beautiful. And it's warm and it's accepting. It's not a flip of a switch that's like, oh, now you're in hell. You know, it's not all the things I have been taught. And I was just like, you know what? This is a lot easier than anything that I have been taught before. And I don't love it because it's easy. I love it because it's more real than anything I've ever been taught. So, and it all feels like love. It all feels like it does. That's the best way I know to describe it. Feeling someone's energy fill a room is like feeling love fill a room, but it's through the expression of a person or a personality. That's the best way I know to explain it.
So, well, I've got 2 questions. One,
I don't know if I can answer them, but I'll try.
Have you experienced it with other individuals since then? And 2, what exactly does a death doula do?
No, I haven't. Now, I did experience it a long time ago when my grandmother passed. And I told my mom about it like years later. And I was kind of worried about how she would feel about it because she does not subscribe to all of this. And she was surprisingly supportive. She said, and look, I just want to say, I like to pick on my mom a lot. I adore her. She's a wonderful person and we are still very close. We just disagree on all the things. And so, but I love her so much. But my grandmother had passed away and there were like 8 or 10 people in the room just hovering around her bed. It was hot in that room. I remember it being humid. I remember being uncomfortable. And she was a very private person, and it kind of occurred to me while we were all in there that like this is not how she wanted this to go down, where everybody was just like hovering over her bed, looking at her, waiting for her to die. It just, and look, that's us wanting to be there and us wanting to be supportive, but not really knowing what to do. So we just stand there and we wait and we hold her hand and we talk to her and all these things. When she passed, all of a sudden everybody had to leave because it was time to get everything ready for, the funeral. Because I mean, her passing was not a surprise. She'd been ill for a very long time. But my aunt was on, and my uncle, her daughter, was on her way from Texas. This is before cell phones. So we did not want her to walk into the hospital, go into an empty room, and put 2 and 2 together. And that's how she finds out that her mother has passed away.
Yes.
So I stayed behind. I was like 22, 21, maybe. And I waited. So when everyone left, I was still in the room with my grandmother, who had already passed. And it was a very sort of abrupt, sort of like she had passed away. The doctors come in, they pronounce, her, and then everyone just sort of turns to one another and says, well, and there's a lot of comforting going on and all that. And then everyone just disperses. They discuss like who's going to stay behind. I'm like, I'll stay behind. And I'm sitting in a chair and my grandmother's right here. And as soon as everybody left, I swear to you, clear as day, I heard her in my head say, oh, thank goodness, I didn't think they were ever going to leave. And I was like, word, grandma, but it didn't even startle me. I was just like, and that was not me, because I was a little uncomfortable staying behind, but I was just like, I mean, I can't really do anything to help with the funeral. I can't really do anything to help with food, but I can do this. I will stay here and I'll wait for my aunt. And so I'm sitting there next to her, and she just says, because she was so private. It's not the way she would have wanted things. And so I reflect on that sometimes in the work that I do now, of like, how do we want this to go down? If because we're all going to die. What happens between the day that we're born and the day that we die, so many variables, but like the certainty, 100%, you don't escape this life alive. Okay. Like we're all going to die.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? What does that look like? How does that go down physically? How does that happen spiritually for some people? What are some things that you need to get in order and know now, and who do you need to communicate that to in order to make sure that your wishes are known? Not just your funeral, not just your estate, but like in that setting, do you want the lights low? Do you want a lot of people there staring at you, waiting for you to take your final breath? If you don't, you can say those things and make sure someone knows. It's like, birth doulas help people come up with a birth plan. And sometimes things go according to that plan, and sometimes they don't. But their wishes have been known, and there are people there who are empowered to do their best to make sure those things happen. The same thing applies with a death plan. How do you want this to happen? And it's not like an assisted suicide thing. So people ask me that question. No, that's not legal here. We don't do that. But in terms of just, and what are your final wishes in terms of, plan your funeral. Take that off of your loved ones' plates, because they're in the middle of grieving and they have to make all these huge decisions. Where do you want to be buried? Do you have a plot?
What music do you want to play?
What music do you know what you want to wear? Do those things, because and it's so hard to face that, because then what you have to do is you have to admit, oh my gosh, I'm dying and I'm leaving. But everyone is. So how do you prepare? And then how do you deal with the grief of knowing that you're going? to pass, because we focus a lot on the grief of our loved ones, but there's a lot of grief that happens when you're like, well, you know, I have an expiration date and I kind of know when it is, you know, that is intense knowledge. So there's a whole host of things. I don't do all of those things. My work as a death doula, I do legacy writing, and that is where I help someone preserve memories, stories, recipes, words of wisdom, things that were left unsaid, anything that they want to put in, like, on the record. We can have that conversation. We can record that information, and then I will put that on a flash drive. That flash drive goes to the family. We can take all of those words, you know, and I don't rewrite anything. There's transcription software, and then I just clean it up so that it makes sense. But those are their loved ones' words. So there's not a lot of creative writing going on with this process. Legacy writing is not me telling someone else's story. It is me facilitating someone telling their own story. So that is the difference between, like, I'm not writing a memoir.
Gotcha.
And but then, like, you can get those things like bound, spiral bound. You can have those things published. Everyone in the family gets a copy. You've got this amazing thing, and then you've got this flash drive. You've got this person's voice, and I just think it's incredibly meaningful. So that's one thing that I do. And the other thing that I am gearing up to do is education. A lot of education and talks with assisted living facilities, hospice facilities. I'll talk to anybody. I'll talk to a Rotary Club. You want me to come to your ladies brunch and chit chat over mimosas about death? Let's do it. You know, like, I'll talk to anybody. So that's what I do. That's it. What I would love to see is a community of death care workers. I would love someone who's doing, like, estate planning, for, you know, that someone that we know and trust, like someone who sort of has the same values.
Wow.
I would love to have workshops where people are empowered to tell their doctors no, because a doctor will pull out all the stops long after hope is gone, and it makes these families hope when there is none. And so to be more realistic about what does your loved one want, and how do you honor that without pushing your own desire to see them. Like, there's just so much. It's very complicated. I could monologue on this, like, for hours.
So is it the loved ones of the individual who is, you know, who's terminal coming to you? Are you indirect? I know you're an advocate for the terminally ill person, or the person who,
Yes.
Okay, but
Yeah,
who do you work for?
both, but primarily the person who's passing. That's my client.
Yeah, that's what I was just
the person who's passing is my client.
yeah,
But that does not put me at odds with the family. I mean, because, like, it's a partnership. I am more now, sometimes families will come to me because their loved one is incapacitated at this point.
Yeah,
So there are some things that, you know, I just simply can't, you know, do those full services, but I can. Oftentimes when someone is passing, family is starting to come together. Everyone wants to come say goodbye. So then you record their stories. What are some of your best memories about this loved one? What are some things that you'd love to share? Is there something that some knowledge or wisdom or something imparted to you that is, you know, meaningful to you that you want to share with the rest of your family? Is there a recipe that you got from grandma that nobody else has that you're finally going to share with the rest of the class? You know, because we can be a little bit proprietary about our family recipes, but, you know, I mean, this is the South. That's part of our heritage.
So is death doula, though, does it ever go into grief counseling?
I'm not a grief counselor.
Okay, you're not.
I'm not. That's another thing I would love to.
Yeah.
After the fact, okay, so if I meet someone through hospice, they have someone on staff who does that. So that's not me. Now I might follow it with a family on a death anniversary. I might follow it with a family on, and they may contact me and say, do you know someone who, and then I'll see what I can do. But by and large, after that service has been rendered by me, I am passing them off to other professionals. I am not equipped. I'm not a counselor.
Right.
I'm not an estate planner. I'm not a funeral director. I am not, I am there for education and comfort and advocacy, honestly. That's my role. Those are my three main things. So I'm here to give you education. Like for example, here's one thing I would love for everybody to know. There's a misconception that when you stop giving someone food and fluids, that they are suffering, that they're starving to death in hospice. And I used to think that too, and it really, really upsets families. And I just sort of want to say that one of the things that I have learned in all of my education as a death doula is that our bodies start to shut down and we don't want food. And we don't want hydration. Like we're just sort of like starting to downshift into, to death, and you don't need sustenance for that. So our bodies are equipped. There's no suffering there. Now, one thing that you may want to do with your loved one who's not receiving fluids and not receiving food is just do a little chapstick. They're getting dry, stuff like that. That is uncomfortable. But so there are other things you can do, but and I think that we get so concerned, like, shouldn't she eat? Shouldn't she have? No, it's okay. And because there are a lot of family members who feel super conflicted about that and get really upset and will insist on an IV. And the IV actually makes the death process harder.
I was going to say, it takes a lot of energy and bodily functions to digest food. And if we don't want them to suffer, because we're thinking they're feeling like
it's not going anywhere. They're not expending calories. They're not like, there's no,
So, I mean, I know you're an advocate, but you're not an actual, like, I'm going to come sit with them the last night.
I can do that. No, I can do that.
Can do that.
I can do that.
But you're not, gotcha.
Yeah.
But
there's
you're
a
not
lot
a
of hospice
nurse. I mean,
no, I'm not a nurse.
Or a CNA.
Any medical care whatsoever. Gotcha. I am not even cleared to touch the loved one unless, it is like to hold a hand, I can do that. But in terms of like, I don't change bed linens. I don't help someone go to the restroom.
You're not a caregiver.
I'm not a caregiver. I am not in that capacity.
Right.
And and I think that it's real easy to get confused with that. Some people think that I'm a sitter, that I'll come and I'll sit with their loved one while they go to the grocery store. And now I volunteer with hospice, and there have been times when I have done that, but that's not a death doula thing. It can be something that someone chooses to do. But no, mine is more like I am there with the family, with this loved one. I am usually not the sole person there. And I haven't encountered that yet. I have a feeling that will happen at some point. I'll figure out how to handle that, if I ever take on a client like that. So,
yeah. So, when discussing, I mean, you're there as an advocate, but you're there to listen, to take down their story. Do y'all ever talk the deep talks about life after death? And is there a certain, how do you navigate influencing your person on your beliefs? You know what I mean?
I don't.
You know what I'm saying?
I don't influence anyone on my beliefs. I don't at all.
So you have to stay neutral.
Absolutely, because this is not the time for that.
That's what
I'm not there as a missionary.
You're not a chaplain.
There. Yeah, I'm not there to say, oh, it's going to be beautiful, you'll be fine. No, that's not my job. What I do is I have had those deep conversations with people in hospice. I've had conversations with people with loved ones. And they'll ask things like, well, no one has ever said to me, what happens when you die? Like on the other side.
Yeah.
A lot of spiritual people, especially devoutly Christian people, feel like they already know what's going to happen. I don't engage in that way.
Right.
I feel like I'm there for the educational aspects of what happens now.
Gotcha.
And so sometimes I'll answer with a question, what do you think happens? Mm-hmm. And sort of let them lead that conversation. But it's not really up to me to say.
And as far as being a death doula, are your clients, is the wording geriatric, is that the right words, older, or do you also specialize? I mean, would you assist in children who are terminally ill?
I haven't yet. I absolutely would.
Yeah, that's
I would say I would. I absolutely would. But I would not go into that expecting the same sort of family dynamics and the same sort of. I would want to make sure that I am more informed in those situations than I am right now. So right now, no. In the future, yes.
Yeah. You said you're getting certified. What's the certification?
Certification is just another, it's just more letters at the end of my name. It's a different organization. There's it's called Death Midwives. It's and it is sort of similar to the certification that I'm working on now, but it's sort of another perspective, which I really appreciate. The one that I'm working on now is through the International End of Life Doula Association. It's called INELDA. And it's pretty intense. You can do it over a weekend, but then you've got 40 hours for your certification, and then a lot of continuing education. It's very, I don't want to say clinical because it's really not, but it is a very intensive, very regimented, very, it is kind of clinical, but there's nothing wrong with that. And this other certification that I'm getting is more of a support role and a little bit of self-care for us, because this is hard work. Now I love it. I absolutely love what I'm doing. But there are some situations that I'm a little hesitant to go into because I feel like I'm not quite there yet, and this certification sort of fills in some of those gaps for me. It's still another basic certification. It's not like a higher certification, what I'm already getting. It's just they call it Death Doula 201 is what is the name of the class. Like it's just and then at the end, we're certified for certain things.
Do you feel your metaphysical experience and what you're learning? I mean, I feel I've learned just so much being in the metaphysical community, the 9 months that I've been in it, that it is more encouraging, or it helps you process what you're going through, like to
it helps me. Yes.
Yeah.
And I would say like where I am spiritually, I've never been more comfortable in my whole life, and never felt more supported. And that doesn't mean anything goes. It doesn't mean I get to make up the rules. It just means I feel known and accepted, not just by this community, but by the spiritual connections and the way that I engage in my spiritual life. And sometimes I kind of hesitate to like stick the metaphysical, like name on it, because people have so many misconceptions of what that is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. That's, I don't mind when other people apply that to me, but whenever I say it to people who aren't a part of this community, they automatically are like, so you're in a cult. And I'm like, no. So I have just a very rich spiritual life that I would say is unconventional. Let's just put it that way.
So,
and yes, it absolutely does enrich my life and feed me and support me in these times with this work.
how do people how do people contact you if they're interested in?
Right now, word of mouth. I have not even put a website up. This is the first thing that I've really done where I've talked about what I do, because I am at the very beginning of doing. I've been volunteering for 3 years. So most of the work that I've done up to this point has been either volunteer or been with, people that I know who reached out to me.
Right.
And a lot of that's been through hospice, right?
A lot of that's been through hospice. And not all of it, but a lot of it. And so now I'm going to be, my plan is to start working with assisted living facilities to keep my foot in the door with hospice, to kind of like reach out to several of those organizations and just say, this is me, here's what I do, here are my certifications. And look, you don't have to be certified to be a death doula, but when you're working with other professional organizations, and especially those in the medical community, they want to see some letters after your name. So fine, we do that. But it also helps me a lot. I'm conflicted in terms of like, I think that I don't even know how I'm going to charge for these services yet. Genuinely, I don't even know that if I am. I feel like this is a community service, and there might be some things that might require that may require some, I don't know, some sort of compensation, but I'm still working through that.
That's
spiritually, financially, trying to figure out how, I don't really, this work was done for hundreds of years by people who were not white. And we have sort of, I kind of want to say Columbused it, we've stuck a flag in it and been like, look, we've discovered death doula work. No, we didn't. It's really, so it's always been done as just a community service. And I feel at this time led in that direction. Now some of the legacy writing can be pretty intensive, and that might, I don't know, we'll see. I don't know yet.
You might need to charge for that, because
I might charge for legacy writing, but in terms of, because that, to me, that's such that is a very time consuming process. But there's some other things that I feel like families need support, and they're already stretched financially.
Yeah.
There's only so much that Medicare can do. And so I don't want to feel like I'm going to add to this burden. Now, somebody can afford to compensate me, by all means, please do.
Right.
But if it's as a practice, generally speaking, I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about that. I don't know how I feel about that.
Totally understand.
So I got a lot of irons in the fire. I've got a lot of revenue streams. This may not be one of them. So, and I'm okay with that.
Oh, Natalie.
Well, my head's spinning right now, but some of them I think it's stuff we've already talked about. But
no, she made me want to cry. No, I know exactly. Yes. How do you charge for something that you sometimes feel like you've been freely given, a gift,
It's a gift. I mean, listen, my friend showed up in my freaking apartment, and now I'm doing death doula work. Who the freak even saw that coming? Not me.
Yes.
So if this is the path that I'm on, how do I support my fellow human who is going through this transitional period? And why would I think, how much money can I make from that? I think there should be an exchange. Maybe we'll barter and trade something. I don't know. I have not figured, I have no idea. I really, truly have not. That part of it, I still think is going to end up being through volunteer service, through other organizations. But if someone comes to me and they want legacy writing, I feel like that may be a paid service. I don't know yet. I haven't figured it out. We'll see.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, you know, like you said earlier, this just isn't talked about.
no.
And I don't even know if people know there's options. And I'm not even talking about options like to choose whether to pull the plug or not. I'm talking about options of like how you want to die. Like, and like you said earlier, like whether to feed them or not, you know, do you want, because, you know, Emily and I have both been through, we've lost loved ones. We've been caregivers for, it's funny because I've had many people close to us die, but I have not been present at any of their deaths. Like at the moment they passed, that's not happened. But just little things like, would they want to be dressed every morning or not? Do you think they want to open the blinds or keep the blinds closed? Do you think they want to play music in the background or not play music in the background? I mean, there's so many little questions
that means a lot to you. There was one lady who loved gardenias. We made sure she had fresh gardenias in her room every time. Like there's things like that, you know, and they may seem really small, but whenever you're talking about this is someone's final environment on this mortal plane, what can we do to make
it may actually be more for the caregiver than the person transitioning.
Sometimes
because it, you know, as I watched my mother-in-law, she was in hospice but was at home for several weeks and slowly, you know, dying, and we knew that's where she was going. You know, you want to do something, you feel helpless. You know, I would read Bible verses to her because I knew what Bible verses she liked. Well, if you didn't know what Bible verses they liked and you want to read to it's just little things like that it'd be great for families just to, because you don't think about that until they do go into that comatose state where you can't, or they're not talking anymore. I don't know. It's a lot of emotions, a lot of moving parts.
I think that part of my practice is going to come up with a to-do list for family members, but not really call it that. But like, here are some tasks that you can do that will support your loved one. You know, there was one family where they were very musical, and so one of the grandsons would come in and play guitar and sing. You know, and that was lovely, you know, so things like that. And look, there's sometimes people say, okay, I want visitors, but I don't want more than 3 people in here because it's overwhelming. Honor that. Just because they're unconscious now doesn't mean they don't know that you're there and that you are breaking the rule, you know. So honor that. If they say, I don't ever want to see Aunt Margaret again, not even when I'm dying, don't let her come in there. You know,
right.
Don't let her come in there. So, but that is not for me to do. I'm not going to like body check Aunt Margaret if she's trying to walk through the door. That is a family member thing, but you don't know these things sometimes unless you have those conversations. And whenever you are preparing for death and you are already grieving and you're trying to get these arrangements done, you're not thinking about some of these conversations. And one of the things that this helps us with is to deal with those intrusive thoughts that happen after someone dies and you wish, oh, I should have, I wish I had. And then you've got guilt with your grief.
Yes.
This helps us alleviate that so that you can just move through the grief and remember your loved one, and also remember the beautiful things that you did for your loved one when they were at the end of their life.
I think one advantage is, I kick myself now, Krista, thinking about, did we really record Dad talking when we had the cell phone to do it? You know, record video. I mean, I was mentioning my mother passed in 1991. I think it was 1991. And so we really didn't have cell phone and all that. And I'm like, I cannot remember what her voice sounds like. I was
and that look.
And I'm like, I still can't. I just can't remember what her voice sounds like. And just to express how important it is for someone to make sure they get it recorded. Because
I mean, and you just, when you're caring for someone who's sick, you're not thinking about those things. It's not until, until later, often when the opportunity is passed, sometimes, they're still alive, but now they're unconscious and you're like, oh my gosh, And so I think it also helps people to understand that grief is not linear. Like there's not the stages of grief. I feel like we've taken and sort of made that into a linear thing, and it's not. They're more like categories of grief. Like there's anger, there's denial, there's, but I don't think that you get one and then the other and then the other and then the other and then poof, you've grieved. So now you're over it. I think if we can approach grief in a totally different way, we can approach life in a totally different way. And we can seize those moments of opportunity to record our loved ones. Look, my parents are in really good health. And they're both still alive, have all of my siblings. And I save really funny or really meaningful voice messages. And then I make sure that those make it to my next phone whenever I, because I mean, you just never know. And so I feel like we should start now preserving those memories. We should start now with planning for not being on this planet at some point. If you've got an attic full of stuff and you're not using it, instead of letting that be a burden on your family, go through it. Look, there's a thing called Swedish death cleaning. Look it up. It's amazing.
Oh, I heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a part of culture. It's actually considered kind of rude if you get to a certain age and you have not downsized your personal belongings that you're just not using anymore. But we have such a accumulation mindset in this country that we can't take it with us. And I think that we can do things now to alleviate the burden on our families and on ourselves. Honestly, I feel like I truly believe, of course, and I don't have to tell y'all this, everything is energy. Everything is energy. And if I have got, and y'all, my apartment's killing me right now. If I have got clutter everywhere, it affects me mentally, emotionally, the way that I move through that space. The fact that I just become numb to piles of something like that. I know I need to go through that mail or whatever. And then you sort of train your brain to sort of become blind to it. If you are going through your things and really and I'm not talking like Marie Kondo, because she said something like you should only have like 12 books. I'm like, are you crazy? So I was just like, no, no, there's some good stuff in there, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like realistically looking at your things and saying like, I haven't touched this in 4 years. We're paying to store stuff. Our junk we pay rent to store our stuff. Do we need it? I'm really seriously asking myself that question. Like I could use that money for something else. So there are so many things that we can do for ourselves now that will also make things easier on our loved ones later. And we do not have to have a terminal diagnosis to do those things. Live the way that you want to die. Live the way that you want to go. And that's the main thing that I have learned from all of this is, and I'll be honest with you, it kind of brings it back around to this book, The 4 Agreements. It really does. For us to just live a good life, because one of the things that keeps coming up in my classes and a lot of the podcasts and some of the TikToks and all the people that my algorithm thinks that I'm like death obsessed or something, because there's just like, and then there's this, and I'm like, oh, that's really good. Let me see that. But the is that we will die the way we live, and if we lived a difficult life, and we're difficult with our families, and we're difficult to be around, it's very unusual to see someone who has a totally transformational thing and is just a peach to be around whenever they are passing. They will be difficult. You can anticipate that. You know, so not everybody's love and light at the end. And because they weren't love and light when they were living life.
Yeah.
That's reality.
Yes.
So yeah, live good so you can die good.
Yes. Oh,
Thank you, Natalie.
there's your. If that's not a slogan, you should make it one.
Yeah.
I'll write that down right now.
So you can die good.
Let me ask you this, and then we'll let Emily take us in the direction we need to go. Have you heard of the book on death and dying?
Yes, I have it.
Do you have it?
Yep, it's on my shelf.
I need to revisit that. Of course, I did not read that book cover to cover, but when my mother-in-law, she passed away of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma that she dealt with for, I think, a good 5 years or so, went into remission a couple times, had heart failure. But that was a book that she was reading that a lot in her last year or two of life. And I didn't read it, but I would occasionally pick it up and thumb through it too. And
it's a good one.
Yeah, that's another one I want to revisit.
There's
I don't
a
know if
lot
that's
of
a
good
Metaphysical Mississippi Book Club, but maybe that's one you and I can read together.
No, I mean, like, there can be, look, I wish that we had a lending library, but I don't trust people with my books, so nobody can have that. You can borrow this one, Krista.
Okay.
But,
Well, I probably have
generally speaking,
I have her copy somewhere at the house. I probably have it already.
Yeah.
But
it's a really good one. There's Life After Death is a good one. After by Bruce Grayson is really good. Death Rites, RIGHTS, and Rites, RITES, like the rituals of death, is one of my favorites.
Oh, that's good. That would be very good for you to know.
I'm just looking at my bookcase and like reading stuff out loud. How to Go On Living When Someone You Love Dies. There's a lot of good books on grief, but there's a lot of good books on just preparing for death. And some of them are religious in nature. Some of them are very clinical, like what is a near-death experience and why does the brain do that? You know, like there's all of those. I wrote a paper on near-death experiences in college. So this is just sort of
synchronicity.
Wow, who knew? You know, but and it was one of my favorites because I was kind of struggling at the time, going like, well, if nothing is there, then what is a real death? You know, what's a near-death experience? And because I was an atheist when I wrote the paper. What else? There's some good witchy books on death too.
Think on that, but I just have a question that may get us off the topic real quick. I mean, that's nagging me.
Go ahead.
Legacy writing, what about for someone who is still alive, but they have like Alzheimer's?
Yes.
So do you do death doula for the dying of their ability to?
Yes. Yeah. Matter of fact, I've been actually trying to figure out how to. I've always, when I started this journey, and I was like, well, I'll do legacy writing for people who are dying, but those people know that they're dying, and their death is sort of like the end is nigh, you know, and so I've always thought of it in those terms. But then there are people who are not dying, actively dying, who would really benefit from legacy writing and preserving those memories, and sort of need someone to walk them through that process. I'm totally here for that. I would love to do that.
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
So I'm not like, I kind of sort of need to rethink how I'm going to put that out there in the world, because all this time I've been like, I'm a death doula and I do legacy writing. Not everybody needs a death doula whenever they're legacy writing. Sometimes you just need a legacy writer.
Correct.
So
yeah,
maybe the two things aren't going to be completely like, I see the Venn diagram there, but I also see how like it would be two different circles.
Right. Natalie, thanks for coming on. We're so excited about the book club coming up June 11th. And they just show up with the book, right?
Show up with a book. Yeah. And you read the book ahead of time. Some people were asking that question.
Yeah.
And if you don't finish the book, come anyway. It's okay. We're going to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And yeah, do register on the Metaphysical Mississippi website. There is a $7 fee. Y'all know we're gonna have some snacks. So
some wine and some other things that are not wine. So
yeah. So you'll get your money's worth getting to play with us.
Good Sunday afternoon. All right. Well, y'all have a great afternoon.
You too. Thank y'all so much. Bye.
Bye. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent.